Hello, BookTube. I have a tag for you today. I was tagged by Pimp Book Reviews. Thank you very much. That's always wonderful. And I think the tag was originated by Ben Sanders. They're two wonderful channels that you should check out. And it's the '90s cartoons book tag. And I will I will suppress my initial question of wondering if these guys think 1890s as a reason to tag me. And instead, I will point out that since it's well known that I'm only 28 years old, that means that during the 90s I was a small infant. But I've done some research. It just links books to some 90s cartoons. The first one being Rugrats. Find a book that is a nostalgic read. And for me, that is, this time around anyway, that is Washington Irving. Uh, this is the Jeffrey Crayon book, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Other Stories, where Irving, of course, wrote his stories to brim with nostalgia. That's the key they were written in. And it works for me. I absolutely love them. They and the Jungle Books and the handful of other books are just home to me. They're exude nostalgia. Even though I have come more and more to appreciate with time that there's a lot of subversion going on there. These are not entirely comfortable books from front to back. Well worth your time to read rather than just molder on a library shelf. Number 2 is Douglas MacArthur. Anyway, find a book about growing up. I have a wonderful candidate for you. It's Frank Conroy's great book, Stop Time. His memoir about his boyhood that is just wonderful. By turns, hilarious, or manic, or bittersweet. It was recognized from the minute that it appeared as the masterwork of a literary career, and that can always hurt a writer, and I think it hurt Conroy, but it's true. it's an amazing book. Number 3, Johnny Bravo. Find a book whose main character you don't like. Now, there are lots of categories for that, especially for me, since my first response is always nonfiction. It could be All the President's Men. It could be any book about Lyndon Johnson. But even in terms of fiction, there's Dracula, for instance. And I'm not, in this case, talking about Dracula. I'm talking about the loathsome, idiotic Abraham Van Helsing. But also, in more recent terms, would be Pete Dexter's novel Paris Trout, in which the title character is a truly odious human being. At one point in the novel, a character says, "There's a little of Paris Trout in all of us," and by that point in the novel, you just want to scream and say, "No, if there is, I'll have an operation to have it removed." But no, as far as a character, the main character that you don't like, I thought I would just go for the A game, and that is this. I have it on my Kindle here. And I wanted to show it just instead of showing it to you or telling you about it. I wanted to show it to you because that's one of the greatest cover designs of any book ever. His team of mermaids is "Look Who's Back." I still chuckle every time I see this cover, in which Adolf Hitler mysteriously awakens in the present day, and he hasn't changed at all. He's exactly himself, but the present day is no longer capable even of understanding him, except as satire and and something viral. In every way, the book should fail. It should be offensive in every single way, and yet it's a total success. Just like the old American cartoon or sitcom, Hogan's Heroes, a comedy series set in a prisoner of war camp, a Nazi prisoner of war camp, shouldn't have been funny. But it was. Just, I guess, the way of comedy. Number 4 is South Park. Now, that I've heard of. Because I, like most people, don't like Canada. Find a book with questionable humor. There are all sorts of candidates here, but I think the one that comes first to my mind, the one where I felt guilty laughing, and yet I laughed my head off the whole time, is an utterly horrible book called "I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell" by Tucker Max, which it is just pure knuckle-dragging, projectile vomiting misogyny from start to finish. It's not a book you're proud to like. I believe has a lot of writing chops in it, but doesn't matter. It's after the fourth anecdote that involves vomiting in someone's hair, you don't really care whether or not someone is, turgid ham. But still, that would definitely be under the questionable humor heading. Next one is Powerpuff Girls. Powerpuff Girls? Find a book with a kick-butt female lead. I have a great candidate for that. It's Larry McMurtry's 1970 novel, Moving On, with that great 1970s cover. In which the main character, Patsy Carpenter, is one of his greatest fictional creations. It's a huge, sprawling novel. McMurtry is a Tolstoy figure, a Homer figure, in that he wrote two toweringly great books, this and Lonesome Dove in his case. And her navigations through life, through sex, through jobs, through the rodeo world, it's just an amazing three-dimensional portrait of a strong-willed woman who's unforgettable. And my hat's off to him, really is. Next one is Rocket Power. What is your favorite sports-centered book scene? And for that, I'm going to go back to Larry McMurtry. I'm just going to stay with him because I can't think of a better example. In his novel, The Last Picture Show, there's a scene. I think it's the second chapter of the book. The whole thing it's just a set piece of a high school basketball game that is just brilliant, an absolutely flawless comic set piece from start to finish. There's not a single thing in it that isn't perfectly done. The book is tender and rip your heart out a little, but I've often recommended it to people just for the sake of that scene. It's virtuoso writing. Let's see here. And the last one, we're already in Futurama, which I also vaguely know because it had a Star Trek episode. What is your favorite sci-fi book? Now, for this, I'm taking the question literally, because I'm not going to talk about the best science fiction novels. I am going to do a science fiction starter kit video, but in this case, I'm talking about something that I won't make a case is one of the best science fiction novels ever written, but it is my favorite, and that is God Emperor of Doom, the fourth of Frank Herbert's Doom books, which breaks a lot of sort of settled narrative rules and yet manages to work perfectly. It's one of the only sequels I know that takes place thousands of years after the end of the previous book, and it involves a character who has lived that whole time. He has achieved a kind of functional immortality by transforming slowly from a human into something very different from human. He doesn't look human anymore. His organs have moved around. His sensory apparatus is changing. And it's an incredible portrait of that character, of the character Duke Leto, the king, the God Emperor of a galaxy-spanning empire. Very little happens in it. He throws some temper tantrums. He is the subject of an assassination plot, but it's mostly dialogue. And there are whole scenes that have nothing but dialogue. And I think incredibly good. I think it's a refinement of Herbert's talents. The first book that he wrote, in my opinion, where he knew, whether from publisher sales history or from just personal revelation, that he didn't need to pander anymore to the expectations of the genre, and just decided to write his own books. And my God, the two books that follow this one are even more so. Very strange books. I'll get to Frank Herbert at length in time. But that's it. That is the 90s cartoon book tag. And all it's left is for me to tag people. And I tag my fellow 90s kids. I tag Becky Ford from her channel. I tag Dee Dee from Brown Girl Reading. I tag Jen from Jen's Library. I tag Joe from Retired Book Nerd. I tag Sue from Sue's Book Nerd. All of us remember the 90s so well when we were little kids. Anyway, thank you, BookTube, and thanks again, Pimp Book Reviews, for tagging me. I'll see you soon.